Officer Jack Wilson was walking through Greenfield Park on a Tuesday afternoon. The spring sun felt warm, but the wind still carried a chill. His patrol was almost over when he spotted a teenage girl sitting alone on a bench near the duck pond. Something about her caught his attention. She sat hunched over, arms wrapped around herself, though the day wasn't that cold. Her clothes looked clean but worn, and her long hair partly covered her face. Jack had been a police officer for 15 years. He had learned to trust his instincts. "Excuse me, miss? Are you all right?" he called, keeping his distance so he wouldn't frighten her. The girl's head jerked up. For a moment, her eyes met his wide, fearful eyes in a thin, pale face. She couldn't be more than 16. Something about those eyes tugged at Jack's memory, but he couldn't place it. "I'm just checking if you need help," he said gently, taking a slow step forward. The girl tried to stand. Her lips parted as if to speak, but no words came out. Then her eyes rolled back and she began to collapse. Jack lunged forward and caught her just before she hit the ground. Her body felt frighteningly light in his arms, like holding nothing more than a bundle of sticks. "Hey! Can you hear me?" Jack patted her cheek lightly, but she didn't respond. He carefully laid her on the grass and called for an ambulance. While he waited, he checked her pockets for ID but found nothing, no wallet, no phone, not even a bus ticket. The girl's face was so familiar. It bothered him like an itch he couldn't scratch. Had he arrested her before? No, she was too young. Had he helped her in some previous incident? That didn't feel right either. The ambulance arrived within minutes. The paramedics worked quickly, checking her vital signs and starting in 4. "She's severely dehydrated," one told Jack. "Good thing you found her when you did." "I'll follow you to the hospital," Jack said. He wasn't sure why he felt so strongly about staying with this girl, but the feeling wouldn't let go. At the hospital, Jack paced the waiting room floor. His shift had ended an hour ago, but he'd called his wife, Mary, to tell her he'd be late. When he explained about finding the unconscious girl, Mary understood. She always did. "Officer Wilson?" A doctor appeared in the doorway. "Can I speak with you for a moment?" The doctor led him to a quiet corner. "The girl is stable but in poor condition. She's malnourished and shows signs of long-term neglect. We found old injuries that never received proper medical care." Jack nodded, his concern growing. "Any ID on her?" "No, but we found this." The doctor handed him a small plastic bag containing a worn photograph. It was sewn into the lining of her jacket. She must have wanted to keep it very safe. Jack took the bag, pulled out the photo, and felt the world tilt beneath his feet. The picture showed a younger version of himself with Mary. Between them stood a small girl with a gap-toothed smile, holding an ice cream cone. Their daughter Emma, who had disappeared during a camping trip 11 years ago, when she was just 5 years old. Jack stared at the picture, his hands shaking. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Officer?" The doctor looked concerned. "This girl," Jack's voice cracked. "I think she might be my daughter." The doctor's eyes widened. "Your daughter? She went missing 11 years ago. We never found her." "The patient appears to be about 16, which would match," the doctor said slowly. "We can run DNA tests to confirm." Jack could barely breathe. "Can I see her?" The doctor nodded and led him to a small room. The girl lay in the hospital bed, looking even smaller and more fragile under the bright lights. A nurse was adjusting her for. Jack approached slowly, afraid that if he moved too quickly, this miracle might vanish. He studied her face, the shape of her nose, the curve of her eyebrows, and saw echoes of his little Emma, of Mary, of himself. "She's sleeping now," the nurse explained softly. The doctor gave her something to help her rest. Jack nodded, unable to speak past the lump in his throat. He carefully took the girl's hand in his. Her fingers were thin but warm. "Emma," he whispered, not expecting an answer. But her eyelids fluttered. Slowly, she opened her eyes and looked at him. For a long moment, she just stared. Then her cracked lips moved. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible. And Jack Wilson's world changed forever. The hospital room was quiet except for the gentle beeping of machines. Jack couldn't take his eyes off Emma. He'd called Mary right away, and she was rushing to the hospital. The doctors had taken samples for DNA testing, but Jack didn't need science to tell him what his heart already knew. Emma drifted in and out of sleep. Each time she woke, she seemed startled to see Jack still sitting beside her bed. "You're really here," she whispered during one of these moments. "I'm not going anywhere," Jack promised, squeezing her hand gently. The door flew open, and Mary burst in. She stopped abruptly when she saw Emma, her hand flying to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face as she slowly approached the bed. "Emma? My baby?" Mary's voice trembled. Emma looked at her mother, and something flickered in her eyes, recognition fighting through layers of fear and confusion. "Mom?" She spoke the word like she was testing it. Mary reached out with shaking hands but stopped short of touching Emma, afraid to frighten her. "Yes, it's Mom." "Oh, Emma, we've looked for you for so long." Dr. Lewis entered the room with a serious expression. "I'm sorry to interrupt this reunion, but I need to speak with all of you." She looked down at her clipboard. "Emma's condition is stable, but concerning. She's severely malnourished and shows signs of long-term isolation and neglect." Jack felt Mary's hand grip his tightly. "There are also indications of physical abuse, old fractures that never received proper medical care," the doctor continued. "Who did this to her?" Jack asked, his police training battling with his rage as a father. "We don't know yet," Dr. Lewis replied. "Emma hasn't spoken about it. The police have been notified, and a specialist in child trauma will come tomorrow." A social worker named Beth arrived shortly after. She sat with them and explained that they needed to be patient. "Emma has experienced severe trauma," Beth explained. "It will take time for her to feel safe enough to talk about what happened. The most important thing right now is to provide stability and not push her for information." The hours passed. Jack called his boss to explain the situation and was granted emergency leave. Mary called Emma's grandparents, who could hardly believe the news. That night, neither Jack nor Mary would leave the hospital. The staff brought in a reclining chair, and they took turns sitting by Emma's bedside while the other tried to rest. In the early morning hours, when the hospital was quiet, Emma woke with a start. Jack, who had been dozing in the chair, was instantly alert. "Emma? What's wrong?" "They'll find me," she whispered, her eyes wide with terror. "They always find me when I try to run." Jack moved closer, careful not to crowd her. "Who finds you, Emma? Who are you afraid of?" Emma pulled her knees to her chest. "The Millers. They said they were my real parents. They said you and Mom died in a car crash when I was little." Her voice was small but steady. "But then I found a box in their attic with newspapers about a missing girl. There was my picture. They lied to me." Jack struggled to keep his expression calm despite the fury building inside him. "The Millers. Can you tell me their first names?" "Robert and Helen," Emma said. "We lived in a house in the woods. No neighbors. They homeschooled me. Said it wasn't safe for me to go out." Mary had woken during this conversation. She sat on the edge of the bed, her face pale. "How did you get away?" she asked gently. "Robert hurt his back last month. He couldn't walk much. Helen had to go to town for his medicine every few days." Emma's voice grew stronger as she spoke. "Last week, I found where she kept the house key hidden. I took some food and the picture from the newspaper and ran. I walked for 2 days, mostly at night. I was trying to find the police station, but I got so tired at the park." Jack nodded, his throat tight. "That's when I found you." Emma looked between her parents. "Are you real? Sometimes I dream about you, but you never talk to me like this." Mary reached out slowly and, when Emma didn't pull away, brushed a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "We're real. And we never stopped looking for you, not for one single day." Emma's eyes filled with tears. I tried to remember, but they said I was making things up. They said I was crazy when I talked about my other parents. Jack took out his phone and showed Emma pictures, her 5th birthday party, the camping trip just days before she disappeared, her room that they had kept exactly as she left it. "This is your life, Emma," he said softly. "This is the truth." Outside the room, a detective was waiting to speak with Jack. But that could wait. Nothing was more important than this moment. As a family shattered 11 years ago began the delicate process of finding each other again. Detective Ben Rogers sat across from Jack in the hospital cafeteria. Both men had cups of coffee that had gone cold. Jack had finally left Emma's room when she fell asleep with Mary by her side. "We've put out an alert for Robert and Helen Miller," Ben said. "Emma's description of the house should help narrow down the search. Do you think she could work with a sketch artist to help identify them?" Jack nodded slowly. "Maybe tomorrow." "She's stronger than I expected, but she's been through so much." "The DNA results confirmed what you already knew," Ben added. "She's definitely your daughter." Jack stared into his coffee. 11 years, Ben. 11 years she was just a few hours away from us. We'll find them, Jack. I promise you that. When Jack returned to Emma's room, he found her sitting up in bed. A hospital social worker named Lisa was talking to her while Mary held her hand. "Officer Wilson," Lisa greeted him. "Emma has been telling me more about her life with the Millers." Emma looked at her father with tired eyes. "I told her about the house and the rules." "So many rules." Jack sat on the edge of the bed. "What kind of rules, sweetheart?" "Never go outside alone. Never answer the door or phone. Hide in the special room if anyone came to the house." Emma's voice was flat, like she was reciting a lesson. "If I was good, I could have books. If I was bad, they took everything away and locked my door." Mary's knuckles were white as she gripped Emma's hand. "Did you go to school?" Lisa asked gently. Emma shook her head. "Helen taught me at home. Reading and numbers. But no history or science. She said those subjects would confuse me." "Did they ever take you to a doctor or dentist?" Lisa continued. "Only once, when I broke my arm falling from a tree. They took me very far away and told the doctor my name was Jane Miller." Emma touched her left arm. "Robert was so angry about that. He said I cost them too much money." Jack fought to keep his expression neutral. "How did you know to come to Greenfield Park?" Emma's face brightened slightly. "I remembered it. I kept a secret memory box in my head where I put things they couldn't take away. The park was in there. And ice cream with sprinkles. And Mum's yellow dress." Mary gasped softly. "The one with little flowers? I wore that the day of the camping trip." Emma nodded. "I wasn't sure if my memories were real. The Millers said I made things up." She looked down at her hands. "Sometimes I thought I was crazy." "You're not crazy," Jack assured her. "You're incredibly brave." That afternoon, Dr. Lewis came with good news. "Emma is doing well enough to be released tomorrow, provided she continues to rest and receive proper nutrition. We'll take care of everything," Mary promised. A child psychologist named Dr. Thompson also visited. She spoke with Emma alone for an hour, then met with Jack and Mary. "Emma is showing remarkable resilience," she explained. "But recovery will take time. She's been living in an environment of fear and isolation for most of her life. Trust won't come easily. What can we do to help her?" Mary asked. "Keep things simple and predictable. Don't overwhelm her with too many choices or new experiences. She'll need therapy, but she'll also need to feel normal. School should wait until she's ready." Dr. Thompson looked at them kindly. "Most importantly, follow her lead. Let her set the pace." That evening, a police officer brought a photo lineup. Emma identified Robert and Helen Miller without hesitation. "That's them," she said quietly. Will they go to jail? Yes, Jack said firmly. They will never hurt you again. As night fell, Emma became anxious. What if they come here? There's a police officer right outside your door, Jack assured her. And I'll be right here all night. Promise? Emma asked, sounding younger than her 16 years. I promise. Later, when Emma was asleep and Mary had stepped out to call her parents, Jack's phone buzzed with a text from Ben. We found the house. No sign of the Millers yet, but plenty of evidence. They won't get far. Jack looked at his sleeping daughter, her face peaceful for the first time. Tomorrow, they would take her home, to a house she barely remembered, to a room frozen in time, to a life interrupted 11 years ago. There would be challenges, setbacks, and painful conversations. But tonight, in this quiet hospital room, Jack finally felt something he had almost forgotten: hope. He gently brushed Emma's hair back from her forehead. We're going home tomorrow, he whispered. All of us, together. The drive home from the hospital was quiet. Emma sat in the back seat, looking out the window with wide eyes at the town she barely remembered. So much had changed in 11 years. New shops, new buildings, new roads. Everything looks different, Emma said softly. Mary turned in her seat to look at her daughter. Some things have changed, but our home is still the same. We never moved. They pulled into the driveway of a blue two-story house with white shutters. Emma stared at it for a long moment. I remember the tree, she said, pointing to a large oak in the front yard. It had a swing. It still does, Jack told her. I never took it down. Inside, Emma moved slowly from room to room, trailing her fingers over furniture, picking up photo frames, stopping to look at marks on the kitchen doorframe that showed her height from ages 2 to 5. When they reached a door at the top of the stairs, Mary paused with her hand on the doorknob. This is your room. We've kept it, well, we kept it the same. Emma nodded, and Mary opened the door. The room was frozen in time, a little girl's bedroom with light purple walls and butterfly stickers on the ceiling. Stuffed animals sat on a small bed with a colorful quilt. Books lined a shelf beside a child-sized desk. Emma stood in the doorway, not entering. It's so small. We can change it, Jack said quickly. Get new furniture, paint the walls, whatever you want. Emma shook her head. Not yet. I need to remember first. She walked to the bookshelf and pulled out a worn copy of Charlotte's Web. You used to read this to me. Mary wiped away tears. Every night. It was your favorite. That evening, they ate dinner together at the kitchen table. Emma ate slowly, carefully, as if expecting the food to be taken away. When Mary brought out ice cream for dessert, Emma's eyes lit up. With sprinkles, she asked hesitantly. All the sprinkles you want, Mary said, her voice breaking slightly. Later, Emma stood in the bathroom, staring at herself in the mirror. Her hair had been cut at the hospital, the tangled mess replaced with a neat shoulder-length style. She wore new pajamas that Mary had bought, soft blue ones with clouds on them. I don't look like me, she said when Jack passed by the open door. You look like you now, he replied gently. People change as they grow up. That night, Emma couldn't sleep in her childhood bedroom. After tossing and turning for hours, she dragged her blanket downstairs and curled up on the living room sofa. Jack found her there and sat in the armchair nearby. The bed feels wrong, Emma explained. Too soft. You can sleep wherever you feel comfortable, Jack assured her. Could you stay? Emma asked in a small voice. Just until I fall asleep? Of course. The next morning brought the news they had been waiting for. Detective Rogers called to tell them that Robert and Helen Miller had been arrested trying to cross the border into Canada. They won't hurt anyone else, Jack told Emma over breakfast. You're safe now. Emma nodded, but her hands shook as she held her toast. Will I have to see them again? Only if you choose to, Mary said firmly. And not for a long time. That day, Emma's grandparents visited. Jack's parents, Bill and Dorothy, had aged considerably in the years since Emma's disappearance. They stood in the doorway, hardly believing their eyes. "Emma?" Dorothy whispered, her voice trembling. Emma looked at these older people who seemed familiar but strange. "Grandma? Grandpa?" Bill let out a sob and had to turn away. Dorothy approached slowly and held out her hands. "May I hug you?" Emma nodded, and Dorothy embraced her gently, as if she might break. "We prayed for this day," she said through tears. "Every single day." The visit was short. Dr. Thompson had advised against overwhelming Emma with too many people at once. But it was a beginning. That evening, Dr. Thompson came to the house for Emma's first therapy session. Jack and Mary waited anxiously in the kitchen. "She's doing remarkably well," Dr. Thompson told them afterward. "But there will be challenges ahead. Emma has missed critical developmental stages. She'll need patience and support as she adjusts." "Whatever she needs," Mary said determinedly. Later, Emma sat with Jack in the backyard, watching the sunset. The garden was blooming with spring flowers. "Dad," she said, testing the word that still felt new on her tongue. "Will things ever feel normal?" Jack looked at his daughter, no longer the 5-year-old from his memories, but this brave young woman who had endured so much. "We'll make a new normal," he promised. "One day at a time." Emma nodded and leaned against his shoulder, just slightly. It was a small gesture, but to Jack, it felt like the most precious gift in the world. 6 months had passed since Emma came home. Summer had turned to autumn, and the big oak tree in the front yard dropped golden leaves across the lawn. Emma stood at her bedroom window, watching her father rake them into piles. She had changed in these months. Her thin frame had filled out with proper nutrition. Her pale skin had gained color from careful time in the sun. Her quiet voice had grown stronger. But the biggest changes were the ones no one could see. Emma turned away from the window and looked at her room. It wasn't a little girl's room anymore. The butterfly stickers remained on the ceiling, but the walls were now a soft green. A teenager's bed had replaced the small one, and new books filled the shelves. Photos of her family, old ones from before and new ones from after, sat on her desk. Today was important. Today she would face Robert and Helen Miller in court. Emma put on the outfit she had chosen with Mary, a simple blue dress and a cardigan. She brushed her hair and took a deep breath before heading downstairs. Jack and Mary were waiting in the kitchen. They tried to look calm, but Emma could see their worry. "Ready?" Jack asked. Emma nodded. "I think so." The courthouse was large and busy. People hurried up and down the steps, carrying files and talking on phones. Emma stayed close between her parents as Detective Rogers met them at the entrance. "You don't have to do this," he reminded her. "Your written statement would be enough." "I want to look at them," Emma said firmly. "I want them to see me." Inside, their lawyer Linda explained what would happen. "You'll sit with me. Your parents will be right behind us. Just tell the truth about what happened to you." The courtroom fell silent when Emma entered. She kept her eyes forward, not looking at the defense table where the Millers sat. She took her place and waited. When it was her turn to speak, Emma stood and faced the judge. Her voice shook at first but grew steady as she told her story, how she had been taken, kept isolated, told lies about her family, punished when she questioned or disobeyed. "They told me my real parents were dead," she said clearly. "They told me I should be grateful they took me in. But they stole my life." Only then did Emma turn to look at Robert and Helen Miller. They seemed smaller than she remembered, less powerful. Robert stared at the table. Helen met Emma's eyes briefly before looking away. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," Emma said, the words coming from somewhere deep inside her. "You didn't break me." When Emma finished, the courtroom was completely silent. The judge thanked her, his voice gentle. Jack and Mary had tears streaming down their faces. Outside, after it was over, Emma felt strangely light. "It's done," she said. Later that day, they received the news, guilty on all charges. The Millers would spend many years in prison. That evening, the family had a quiet celebration at home. Mary made Emma's favorite dinner, spaghetti with garlic bread. Jack's parents came over, and they ate in the dining room with candles on the table. "I have something to tell you all," Emma said when they had finished eating. She looked nervous but determined. "I've been thinking about school." For months, Emma had been studying at home with tutors to catch up on everything she had missed. The idea of real school had seemed too overwhelming. "Dr. Thompson thinks I'm ready to try," she continued. "Not full-time at first. Maybe just 2 classes to start." Mary reached for Emma's hand. "Are you sure?" Emma nodded. "I can't hide forever. And I want to meet people my own age." "We'll be with you every step," Jack promised. After dinner, when the dishes were done and her grandparents had gone home, Emma went to the backyard. The night was cool, and stars filled the clear sky. She sat on the old swing that hung from the oak tree and pushed herself gently back and forth. Jack came out and sat on the garden bench nearby. "Penny for your thoughts?" Emma smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "I was just thinking about how far I've come. 6 months ago, I could barely look at the sky without feeling scared." "You're the bravest person I know," Jack said. "Not brave," Emma corrected him. "Just tired of being afraid." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to the sound of the swing's chains and the distant traffic. "Dad?" Emma finally said. "I think I'm going to be okay." Jack looked at his daughter in the moonlight. Not the 5-year-old girl who had been taken from them, nor the frightened teenager who had collapsed in his arms in the park, but a young woman finding her way forward. "I know you are," he said. "And we'll be right here with you, every single day." Emma pushed the swing higher, letting her feet leave the ground for a moment, feeling the cool night air on her face. For the first time in as long as she could remember, tomorrow didn't feel like something to fear. It felt like a promise.